Our next speaker has been a staple at our events virtually and in North America for many years. I have a proper introduction for him that I will look at in a second. But I first met Jason on a panel. We were both invited to be on by the Star Conspiracy in Chicago a number of years ago. And all I thought was, he's so much smarter than I am. And I didn't really want to make any comments on that panel after Jason had spoken. So he inspires me every time I hear him speak. He makes me smarter every time he speaks. He makes me think about things differently every time he speaks. Jason Lauritsen, if you don't know him, is basically an authority on all things employee engagement and workplace culture. He shares our passion at inspiring workplaces to make the world better and through the world of work, to put the humanity back into the workplace. I think we both feel passionately about that. And he's got insights and ideas that he wants to share with you today. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Jason in, and he tells me that you have technology that means I don't have to do a thing, which is music to my ears. Happy New Year, Jason.
Happy New Year, Matt. How you doing, man? 21 hours is epic. I cannot believe that you're still standing.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest. It was 24 hours nonstop when I went to bed, and then I didn't really sleep. So it's going to be close to 48 hours. But once it's a product, I'll say this again, it's a product of the environment we're living in. We can't get to you, so here we are.
I'm telling you, man, it's an Iron Man feat. This feels like one of those things that, in hindsight, you'll look back on and say, wow, that made a lot of sense when we were, it was exciting when we were mapping it out, but the experience of it, maybe next time we spread it out. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't even conceive of doing what you're doing. So mad props. This is amazing.
Thank you. And I'm loving the setup as well. Our chats are usually totally different. So looking good there, Jason. I need to get off and let you do your thing and share your wisdom with others. So I'll be back soon.
Cool. Well, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. And hello, everyone. And today is an awesome day. Like you caught me on a good day. I'm feeling great. I know the world is still. We have all sorts of issues and challenges and problems, but as a citizen of the United States, I feel like we've been sort of reborn, refreshed today, returned to competence. I don't know. It's Inauguration Day. I just spent a little time to hear what President Biden had to say, and I'm feeling optimistic for the first time in a very long time. And so I'm full of a lot of energy. So I'm excited to be here with you. Really, with I guess a call to action today is what I am planning to share with you. And I hope to spark some thoughts, maybe spark some conversation. And so let's get rolling and see if I can get your wheels turning a little bit. So we're going to talk today about the relationship between well-being and engagement. And this is something that I have been fascinated in for a number of years now, dating back to my years as an executive in HR, and really when I first kind of started brushing up against wellness and what wellness was, workplace wellness, corporate wellness. And so I'm excited to be here today. I think it's taken on an entirely different dimension and an entirely different meaning. And so I want to start today by sharing a story with you from, I think this was back in like mid-December. This is my son, Colton. He's my youngest. He is an avid gamer, as most kids his age are. He's 11 years old. He back in December. So one of the things I have to tell you about us as parents is probably we're sort of a weird combination of probably overly strict sometimes and not strict enough other times. Like most parents, we're just making things up as we go. Colton is our third one. He's the youngest, so he probably has a little more rope. But at any rate, back in December, there was one of the things that we do is we give our kids a lot of latitude, particularly during the summers when they, are on vacation or on the weekends, on about sort of how they manage their bedtimes. And so for years, obviously, we managed their bedtimes pretty strictly when they were little. But now that they're a little bit older, one of the ways that we try to give them some agency and autonomy is they can make decisions about how late they want to stay up or when they go to bed and that kind of thing. And so this was back in December. There was a weekend where Colton, I don't know if he was playing a particular game or watching a particular show, but he decided that he was going to stay up late. And so I think for both Friday and Saturday night, he was up pretty late, like past midnight late, and which is unusual in our house. And so he had been up late, which, didn't say anything about they can sleep in as long as they want. I mean, it's COVID land, so we never go anywhere on the weekends anyway, so they can sleep in as long as they want. But I don't think he slept in all that long. Well, at any rate, fast forward to Monday. Monday morning comes, and where we are, our kids are in school. They go to school. They have been going to school since the fall. And so we have to get him out of bed at his, regular time, get him ready and ship him off to school. And that Monday morning, it was rough. Like, he didn't want to get out of bed. He woke up angry, kind of bitter about having to get out of bed. He clearly was just not in a good place mentally. He woke up on the wrong side of the bed, let's say. Got him ready, he and his sister, and then sent him off to school. And dropped him off. And even going into school, he wasn't feeling good. I picked him up at the end of the day. He's telling me about how he had a terrible day. He was telling me about how he had broken down crying at one point in the day about, one of his friends had said something. He started crying about his great grandpa had died, and his great grandpa died, years ago. And so we sat down when we got home, and we talked a little bit, and pretty quickly, as we started talking about things, he even was able to identify the fact that, maybe the fact that he stayed up really late all weekend and didn't sleep in, was really short on sleep, was so tired, like maybe that was having something to do with the way that he was feeling and how hard his day had been and how hard it was for him to control his emotions. And he decided, and ever since then, very honestly, he's been a lot more sort of regulated on putting himself to bed a little bit early and making sure he's on top of his sleep, which is kind of interesting. But this really struck me. It reminded me, I guess, of how, this conversation about engagement and well-being, like for years and years, it feels to me like we've kind of overlooked the role of well-being and engagement. But all of us, even kids, right, even at 11 years old, it's pretty obvious that when we don't take care of ourselves, when we do the things we need to do to make sure that we're in a good place, we're rested, or we're eating well, or we're eating enough, or not eating too much, or whatever it is, that when we feel good, we show up better, we perform better, whether it's going to school to learn, whether it's going to work to perform, whether it's just showing up in our life. And so that I think is really interesting as we all have a sense of how important well-being is. But I think it's interesting that well-being has been in the background for us for so long. And so what I want to talk about today is to sort of unpack the role that well-being plays in engagement, because I think we know that that well-being is important to engagement. We've had some sense of that. It's become enhanced over the last year. But I want to explain why. I want to get into the why to sort of help us maybe reposition, even reorient our priorities towards well-being as we head into the next year and beyond. So let me first start by defining a few terms, because when we talk about engagement and other things, often we throw terms around without really being clear on what they mean. So when I say engagement, what I mean is that engagement is the degree to which an employee is willing and able to perform up to their potential. Now there's a couple of things in there. Number one is that there's two things going on in engagement. There's a willingness, which is, am I choosing to give you my effort? Do I want to give you my effort and focus and energy and creativity? And then there's an ability component. Like, an ability is a lot of things. Do I know how? Do I have the right tools? Do I have, sort of how able am I to do it? But it's not just willingness and ability to show up to do work. It's about performing up to our potential. So engagement, by my definition, is really about helping employees unleash their full performance potential at work in a way that fits them. And so that's what engagement means. Now, when we break out engagement works, I like to use this equation. And the equation really is is this. There's three elements that go into this equation. And I'm a math nerd. I grew up, I'm really good at math. And so as a math nerd, I hope you'll forgive me, but I've turned it into a math equation. And here's how it works. Engagement is well-being, which is the degree to which we as individuals are well and whole and sort of operating at our individual capacity as humans, where our needs are met. I'm going to define well-being more detailed later, but it's well-being multiplied by satisfaction. And satisfaction is how well our experience of work compares to our expectations. So when we are satisfied, when we feel like our work, the experience is better than what we expect, or at least is equal with what we expect, then there's no barriers, there's no obstacles. I'm not angry, I'm not disillusioned, I'm not any of those things. I don't have negative emotions about work. Whereas alternatively, if my experience is less than what I expect, that's where problems show up. When I am unsatisfied is where things get in the way. So satisfaction is important, and satisfaction is where we spend, honestly, most of our time in engagement. Most of our programs, most of our survey tools are focused on measuring satisfaction historically. And that's not a bad thing. It just misses some of the broader, I think, components of engagement, like well-being. And then the third factor is drive. And drive is do I know what's expected? Am I motivated? Do I know what direction to head in? Do I know where to put my energy and effort to create the biggest impact? And when you take well-being times satisfaction times drive, that's when you get engagement. And remember, engagement is about maximizing my potential to perform. Historically has been that most of our efforts, like I said, were focused on satisfaction, some of it on drive, a little bit on well-being. But when you look at this equation back, so fellow math nerds, you'll notice I use multiplication, not plus signs, because in multiplication equations, if you'll recall, when any variable in that equation goes towards zero, what happens to the product of that equation? It also towards zero. So what that means is that when well-being goes towards zero, my well-being is not good. That can cancel out the best engagement program in the world. That can cancel out the best performance management program in the world. And so well-being has always been there. It's been important. And I think well-being's actually been throwing wrenches into our engagement works for years. We just weren't aware of it. We weren't paying attention to it. We weren't taking it seriously. And then along came a global pandemic, punched us in the face and reminded us like, hey, you should probably be paying attention to well-being. And so suddenly here we are talking about well-being. And so the bottom line is we I think have been confronted with this reality that when well-being is reduced, engagement's reduced. That is a reality. And that's a challenge because well-being can get impacted in a lot of different ways. And we know, we've seen this. So for example, we know when we are sick, when we feel sick, when we are under the weather, I mean, if you think about that, the last time you're under the weather, you don't perform well that day, right? You know that when I'm sick, I know it takes 3 hours to do what used to take 1 hour, what normally takes 1 hour, right? That's when we're sick, we don't perform well. Or, when I was young, right out of college, when I came into my career, I'm only a work hard, play hard guy. So I would, I'd go and I'd work hard at work, and then I would go out and my friends, I'd go hang out. Some of my friends were still in college and stay up till all hours of the night, or my coworkers and I, it's a young group, we'd go out and we'd drink late, and then we'd come into work hungover the next day. And working hungover is not optimal. For those of you that even as a young man, that didn't work for me. As an older man, I can't, it just wrecks me, right? If a hangover wrecks me. And so again, you're drinking too much. If you're self-medicating your way through the pandemic, not good for well-being, bad for performance. When our finances are off, right? Right now we have probably lots of employees that are on the payroll, even at your organization, where maybe their second job at a restaurant is no longer there, right? Went away, or whatever. They were barely holding it together, and then suddenly now they're at risk of being thrown out of their, being evicted, or they're worried about, paying for food. When that's happening, if you're worried about that, you can't show up to work and perform at your best. It's just not possible. And I mean, think relationship problems too. Like I've been through a divorce. Thankfully, I was young and there weren't any kids involved, and that alone wrecked me for a while. There were days I would call in sick to work just because with my marriage was falling apart, I couldn't deal with it. I was emotionally a mess, and I knew that I couldn't contribute at work. Think about right now, there's so many people out there who are stuck in their home with spouses they didn't like before any of this happened, let alone there's abuse and there's all sorts of other issues going on. If that's happening, can you show up and perform at work? No. Right? When our well-being is off, we can't perform. And and it's not just an individual effort. To make matters worse, and starts to help explain, I think, why engagement's been such a global challenge for so long, is that there's this. If you haven't read this book or picked this up, you should check it out immediately. It's Dying for a Paycheck's the name of the book. It's written by Jeffrey Pfeffer, who is, I think, one of the giants in our world in terms of thinking about HR and workplace and really speaking truth and evidence to what's actually happening. But in this book, he outlines that they did a ton of analysis, and their conclusion is that the workplace, the way that we manage people, the culture we put people in, the way people are experiencing work is actually killing people, is causing 120,000 additional unnecessary deaths per year. These are preventable deaths that are being caused, based on their analysis, being caused by the workplace. That is scary. And so well-being is this huge issue. Not only do we have issues going on at home, but the way that we're doing work is actually counterproductive in a lot of cases to our well-being. And that's not only making us unhealthy, but it's killing our engagement and our performance. And so if we're going to really move the needle on this, I think one of the things that we have to do is we have to rethink. We have to step back and really reimagine what the work of engagement is all about. Because historically, when we talked about employee engagement, we talked about it, we would focus on, and even the conversation about employee experience, which is really important. Creating great employee experiences is really important and powerful. Engagement is really important and powerful, but we've thought about it largely as inside the box of work, right? When you go to work, when you go home from work, when you are clocked into work, it is in the context of work. And we've always sort of had this illusion in our engagement programs that work exists in this bigger bubble called life. And once in a while, maybe in our engagement programs, we'd put in a question about work-life balance, as if that is a thing, because we were pretending that this artificial boundary existed between our work life and our real life, which now when you think about it makes no sense. But then, and we've known, we knew that boundary was artificial. It was imaginary. It never existed, but we pretended it did. The organization wanted us to pretend that it existed, and so we as employees pretended that it existed, even though we felt it and we knew it was nonsense. But then along came COVID. That's terrible reset. Like I said, I'm in too good of a mood today. But blew the boundary completely apart. It's gone, invisible. It just revealed that this was nonsense. This didn't even exist. And so all of a sudden, we're now living in this world where work and life are finally being viewed or seen as all the same. Work is just something we do at different times during our life. It has to just fit in. There is no separation. That boundary was nonsense. And so this is what the work of well-being looks like. This is the domain of well-being as we go forward, is that it's not just about what happens during work hours or when someone's clocked into their laptop doing work. It is now about the whole thing. It's now about, if we're going to invite our employees to perform to potential, then we've got to be thinking about ways that we can help improve and impact their life broadly. And so what does that mean? Well, we need a model then for well-being. If we're going to do that, that sort of reframes, like if engagement requires well-being, then we have to get a lot smarter and a lot more intentional about our efforts around well-being. And so with well-being, the model I like the best comes from the University of Minnesota. And I've got the links at the bottom. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you a way that you can enter your email, and I'll email you all of the links and resources I'm about to reference, or the data sources I'm about to reference. But they define well-being this way, that well-being is very simply finding balance in mind, body, and spirit. And then they break it down that, this is what well-being is. It's being mindful, living healthy, creating connection, feeling safe, finding meaning, and healing environments. This is our checklist. This is our checklist. This is what we are all hunting for. And when you think about the work and the conversations we're having right now about work in the world of COVID, in a pandemic universe, this is the list, right? This is our to-do list. These are the things. So what I would encourage you to do, I'm not going to go deep into any one of those today. I don't have time, frankly. But I would encourage you to go to that site and dig in, or go find another model of well-being. There's a lot of models of well-being out there. Most of them are pretty good and holistic. I particularly like this one personally, but there's a lot. Find one and dig in, get educated, and then start doing the work of understanding like where and how you can help foster the well-being of your people. But it's important to remember one thing, is that well-being, and I think this is where corporate wellness traditionally went wrong, is that we've thought about wellness as programs to help fix our unhealthy employees. It was about fixing the employees. That is not what the work of well-being or wellness should be about. Well-being and wellness are programmatic, or it's sort of in a programmatic intention from the organization to understand and meet the needs of human beings, so that those humans can be more whole and well and energized, and they then can give more of their full selves to their work, to their lives, to their relationships. So when we help people be more well, everybody benefits. So what do we need to do? Right? That's a list. That's a lot of stuff to do. You can dig into that. But what should we be doing right now? And that's what I want to leave you with the rest of my time, is I've got 3 sort of calls to action or imperatives for you that I would like you to think about and reflect on and take action on over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. 2021, if you want to move the needle on this, this is where you start. So number 1 is that we have got to go all in on mental health support. There's been some conversation. I know that thankfully, there's been a lot more conversation out in the open about mental health. And I think we are making progress about destigmatizing it and making it more okay to talk about it. But holy smokes, do we have a long way to go. And there is a tidal wave of mental health and mental illness issues coming. Right? The wave of COVID will be followed by a bigger wave of mental health issues. The data is out there. The forecasts are out there. You can go find that. But I'll give you one data point, just to give you a flavor of what's coming. This comes from Mental Health America, from a report that they produced called The State of Mental Health in America. It's a fairly recent report. One of the things Mental Health America does, they're a nonprofit that advocates, big one that advocates for mental health awareness and issues and I guess treatment. And they have free assessments. That's one of the things that they provide. People can go to their website, take an assessment to see where they're at, or if they have some kind of thing, something that they should seek help for. 8 in 10 of the people that have taken their mental health assessment since March, which I think the number is north of 500,000 people just in the US, were scored with moderate to severe depression. That is terrifying. And if you get into this report, the other data in there doesn't make you feel any better. Like the trend lines on depression and anxiety, suicidal ideation are all pointing in the wrong direction. And there's no signs that anything is going to just naturally get better anytime soon. So we have to take action, which is what makes this next data point that much more frightening. And this comes from a PwC Workforce Pulse data report that they put out. The link's there. Like I said, I'll send this link to you if you'd like to look at it. But this is November 2020 data. So this is about as fresh as it can get. In their survey, 84% of CFOs said we're doing a pretty good job addressing employee wellness. 31% of employees in that same survey, those same companies, said, my employer's doing a good job. Huge gap. We are delusional if we think we are solving and addressing this issue yet. We have got to go what we're doing, and we got to multiply it by 10. We need to also go find professionals, right? This is not a time. This is too serious, too important, too big for us to sort of armchair quarterback mental health support. We need to go find We need to go find professionals to help us understand what we need to do and how we need to do it. So that is an issue we've got to tackle, all in on mental health. Second is we have to help people feel safe again. Perhaps the biggest threat past mental health is our loss of safety. And this is contributing to our mental health situation, is that, COVID came along and things that once felt safe don't feel safe anymore, right? Going to the grocery store doesn't feel safe anymore. Certainly those that work in the grocery store haven't felt safe in a long time. And so we have to address this for people. Without safety, there will be no well-being. Without well-being, there can be no engagement. And so, again, this is a place where the trends are not great, right? This is back from the PwC data pulse again. Nearly half of the employees they surveyed strongly or somewhat agree that they are forced to sacrifice personal safety for their paycheck. Think about that. Like, I have to put myself in harm's way to collect that paycheck. And probably that paycheck isn't even a very good paycheck for a lot of those people. And then you see essential workers, the number's even higher. So they're putting their lives at risk. At least psychologically, they feel like they're having to put themselves at risk for that paycheck. And they probably don't feel like they have any, in the environment we're in, they have no other recourse. When you don't feel safe, do you ever feel well? The answer is no. Like, safety is one of our most Maslow's told us safety is one of our most foundational human needs. If we don't address safety, we will never feel fully well. So again, story is not great here. We need to step up. In that same survey, only a third of employees said that the modifications their company were making to improve the physical safety of the safety of the physical environment was making them feel more safe. We are not doing enough. We've got to do more. We've got to engage with employees to help figure out what it's going to take. We've got to step up, because unless we can get safety back, there will be no trust, there will be no well-being, there will be no engagement. So mental health and safety. Now, those are big issues to tackle. So how do we make progress on that in the short term? I'm going to give you the killer app for that. And the killer app for that is management compassion. I know we're not talking a lot about compassion in the workplace, but I think this is more critical, maybe the most critical thing that we should be teaching our managers right now. A lot of conversation about resilience right now, teaching our employees to be more resilient. And I'm not anti-resilience. I wish we had a workforce or a country full of resilient people. That would be awesome. But when you are suffering, your mental health is under attack, you don't feel safe, everything's uncertain, you're afraid, having somebody show up to teach you to be more resilient feels almost insulting. Right? I don't want resilience. I need help. I need support. I need encouragement. I need you to make the pain stop. I need you to create some clarity for me. That's what compassion looks like. So when I say compassion, let's be very clear about what compassion is. Compassion is about recognizing suffering in others. So it's bringing awareness to that someone else is suffering, feeling emotionally moved by that suffering. So like, you see their suffering, that matters to you. You wish that they weren't suffering, and then you try to do something about it. That's compassion. We need to give our managers permission to do that. We need to teach them how to do that, because compassion will get us through this if we let our managers sort of do this. We need to move past some management BS baggage that we've had for years. So what does that look like for managers? Well, here's a couple of things. Teach your managers to see beyond behavior. We get so focused on behavior that we react to an employee's behavior. Well, right now we got to see beyond the behavior, because there's probably a whole bunch of stuff going on underneath that. When we are scared, we're uncertain, we are feeling unsafe, when our mental illness or our mental health is shaky, we don't behave at our best. We do weird things that are out of character. As managers, we need to be able to be curious to go past the behavior to figure out what's going on there. Because, like, let's say you have someone that keeps showing up late to your virtual Zoom meeting every week. Well, you could get after that employee for being late, but it'd probably be smarter to ask some questions. You might find out that you've scheduled a meeting that's at the same time that person's trying to juggle getting 3 of their kids started with virtual school. Like, you put them in an impossible situation. right? Compassion will help us figure out how to solve those problems. We've also got to really lean into getting to know our people, because when we know our people, when we build trust, we build relationship, we're more likely to give them the benefit of the doubt. We're more likely to, be a little more flexible with them. We're more likely to give, not assume that when they're behaving weirdly that it's intentional or it's some character flaw, right? We cut them some slack. That's what we do with the people that we care about the most, that are closest to us. So get to know our people. And finally, help till it hurts. Our people need support. They need help, right? They're struggling. They're dealing with things that they're not equipped to deal with. You're dealing with things you're not equipped to deal with. Your managers are dealing with all sorts of things. Like, we need to help. We need to give our managers help, and then we need to give them permission to help. Don't worry about what people should be doing right now. Like, should I have to help this way? Should I have to be this involved in my employee's life? Doesn't matter. If we're going to be serious about well-being, then that means we are involved in their life. We got to help them make their life work so that they can make work. So that's what this looks like. Those are my 3 imperatives. I hope that has been helpful to you. If you would like all of these resources, the slides, all of the links and data I just referenced, all you got to do is go to this link that I'm showing you here on the screen, gettalk.at/IWP21. Go there. It'll ask you for your email. As soon as you hit enter on your email, it'll land in your email box, all this stuff. Hidden in there is something really cool. Today, just ironically, I just launched or opened up registration for a online managing virtual teams course that I teach. I offered it last year at the end of the year. The feedback was tremendous. This is for managers who are newer to managing virtual teams. I just opened registration again today. Next class starts the first week of February. I offered a great discount to those that are subscribed to my email list, but because you're here, you're watching this, you can benefit from that as well. If you request the slides, there'll be a link to the page. You can learn more about that in case that's something that you are interested in, or that maybe somebody in your organization would benefit from. And so with that, Matt.
Hello.
There's my contact information if anybody wants to reach me. I hope that woke you up a little bit. I got a little preachy there, but man, am I excited today. Today is a good
I was going to say, who needs Red Bull when you have Jason Lauritsen? Fired up. I need to go to sleep at the end of this.
I'm sorry. Well, this is just, I'm just trying to keep you up for the rest of it, Matt. I'm trying to help you get through the rest of it.
Yeah, and that really followed on very nicely from what Home was saying, and then I think what our next speaker is going to talk about. But out of all of the day, I haven't heard compassion once. So out of all the different, not that people don't want to talk about compassion, but that word. So we've been talking about empathy, but compassion, I think that's a fantastic word that we should probably spend some more time on articulating more and more, repeating that message. I've got so many things to talk about, as always with you. I think I'd love to expand upon this in a story on our website as well. I love the math nerd, especially when you started going into the plus sign and the multiplication signs. That really is getting to a whole new level of nerd. I salute you for that. I'm a history nerd. That's why today for me is great to see. And what was going on in the world over the past few months actually impacted me in what you were talking about, actually. The last few months of last year, getting into that cycle. And I wondered, there's 2 quick questions I suppose I wanted to put to you out of the 50 that came to mind.
I'm ready.
Earlier in your talk, you were talking about, getting into those bad cycles, so self-medicating. And is there a way of breaking that cycle? Because when you're in it, it's almost impossible to see a way out of it, and there are so many people at home in lockdown getting into those bad routines and habits. And how I know it's a big question to ask you, but
yeah, well, I mean, I can tell you that, I mean, I'm not immune to any of this. I mean, So what I can tell you is that I'm not an expert in wellness or well-being. That's why I recommend, like, there are lots of great people out there. Go find like Wellness Council of America. WellCoA is a great resource. They're experts. I understand the power of it in the context of engagement. At a personal level, what's worked for me is you have to interrupt the cycle somehow by taking some small bit of action. And so for me, it's either, like introducing, sometimes it might be like, okay, I'm going to introduce just some small change I'm going to try, like a little thing. So it might be start doing something different from an exercise routine. I'm just going to start walking every day for 30 minutes, or I'm going to, the other thing I have to do, and I know this is going to sound really lame, but when I am really self-medicating, it's down to like, I limit myself, how many glasses of wine can I have every day? There's been times where that's what I needed. Like, okay, no more than 2 glasses of wine. And that feels like progress, because if I can get to 2, I can get to 1. And if I can get to 1, then I can get to 0. And so it's little things like that. The other thing is find a partner, right? That is the most powerful thing is, Matt, when you need an accountability partner to break out of one of those, ruts, just call me. Just call me. We'll create something, and then we'll hold each other accountable. And like that can snap me out of a rut too.
One of our speakers in Singapore, Natalie, works for LinkedIn, said that she was getting it. Well, I'm not putting words into her mouth. One of the things to stop her getting into a negative cycle, being locked down, was using that time she would have been commuting at the end of the day and saying, right, I would have been commuting now, I'm going to go for a walk, and actually saying, that's time I have back, I'm going to get out of the house. And the change and impact that had just been going for a walk and putting the AirPod, whatever they're called, pods in, had a huge impact. The last question, because we have to crack on, and this is in your wheelhouse, so I'm sorry I threw a well-being one at you.
That's all right.
Talk about the box of work and the bubble of life, preaching to the choir here. Threat and opportunity. So it's awesome that that's been obliterated. I mentioned this 22 hours ago, that blurred line has just gone. But I suppose, guardrails is something we've been talking about a lot in the news. What guardrails need to be put in place so it doesn't go too far the other way?
That's a great question. And I think that's a big question. I think a lot of that starts with, the simple answer is that I think we have to reframe and redefine how we think about and measure productivity.
Yeah.
We have to finally get beyond, like, historically, what organizations, when they think about productivity, it's been about how much juice can I squeeze out of the orange, right? It was like, I want to get the maximum amount of productivity out of each individual. And so when you blur the lines, then what that looks like is like, well, now I can squeeze that whole thing, right? I can get more juice. But if you flip over productivity and you think, no, productivity is being really clear about what we're asking of that employee, like, here's what we expect. And then we want you to be able to do that most efficiently and in the best possible way for you. We want you to maximize yourself. And so you're defining, instead of an imaginary BS boundary that we all pretended existed, we create real boundaries that are driven by and designed into work. That's how we fix it.
Fantastic. I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to say thank you on behalf of everybody. This talk is obviously going to be made available on demand as well for those who are different time zones. And when they watch it, it's going to really prop them up for the rest of the day, rest of the week. So I thank you so much, Jason. Enjoy the rest of this day. Keep that feeling, and we'll speak soon.
I'm going to do some drinking today, but not for self-medicating. It's all celebration today, my friend. So thanks for having me. Good luck with the rest.
Good man. Speak soon.